The first item on tonight's agenda is public input on non-agenda items. Items not on the agenda for this evening. Is there any public input related to non-agenda items this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items. We will go to the first order of business this evening is the public hearing per New Hampshire RSA 675:7 to permit a mixed-use village development alternative in the Northern Commercial District as a conditional use by amending Section 803, conditional uses, to include a new subsection E. The full text is available at the Town Hall Selectmen's Viewing Room or on the website Litchfield, newhampshire.gov Planning Board portal under the Governments tab, portal link to the left. Is the applicant here this evening?
This is...
Oh, is it a public hearing?
We're the applicant.
Well, I know Mr. Charbonneau is here, certainly this evening for this. And so this is a public hearing regarding the mixed-use development. Does anybody from the public want to speak? So, come forward.
Rick Charbonneau, 401 Charles Bancroft Highway. The only thing I have on this is on number 5, is not less than 200 feet. So if that could stay at 100 instead of 200,
Okay.
that could be left at 100.
At 100.
And the reason for
That was
that, we
100%.
talked about it the last meeting, I was okay with it. In my mind, I was counting the stuff on the other side of the road, and I can't do that. And it would really hurt a smaller development if it was at 200. So 100 is really a better number. That's it, everything else is great.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment tonight on this public hearing regarding mixed-use village development? Come forward, state your name and address.
Jason Brennan, 23 Aldrich Street. I've been tracking this for a few years now. I think it's a pretty good idea for 3 reasons. It's a good opportunity for the developer and the town to work together to create something that's unique within the community. I like the village concept. There are, in town, we really don't have a main street. I don't see this ever being Tuscan Village Junior, but it could be something. We do have the bike path. We do have, it's in a high visibility part of town. I think that we have the opportunity here to maybe create something that's unique where people in town can get on the bike path, go to some sort of village type of green area, be able to have a sprinkling of residential properties around there, as well as be able to have some commercial properties, a coffee shop and so on. So it could create something unique, and that's what one of the things I like. And the last thing is that, this is probably one of the most visible pieces of property in town. And realistically, what would go there now, you're not going to put a Walmart there. There's not going to be a Walgreens. There's not going to be any of that. Someone could come in tomorrow and actually put in storage facilities or a warehouse. And the last thing I want to see personally when I drive down 3A and take a left on the Albuquerque is a big warehouse. Something is going to be built there someday, unless the owner of the property wants to donate it to the town, which I don't think is actually going to happen. Something is going to be built there someday, and I think this provides the opportunity for the town and the developer to work together to create something that's mutually beneficial. As far as the numbers go, the 100, 200, the density, that's your job, but I'm just kind of stating my opinion on the other side.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to comment regarding the mixed-use village development? Yeah, Ms. Gandhi, I'm sorry. Come forward.
Laurie Gandia, 3 Chamberlain Drive here, obviously in Litchfield, and I'm just now looking at this. Just a little bit of concern, just a quick perusal, is the fiscally balanced way language in E. So a wide variety of housing types in a fiscally balanced way. Not quite sure how that should be interpreted. And again, if we have stuff in there, we want to make sure we know how we're going to interpret that language. And for 10, shall be submitted for approval by the planning board to ensure that a harmonious development pattern and a positive fiscal balance is maintained. Not quite sure what that means and how the town is going to ensure that that is maintained. So if we can't ensure that, then I would recommend removing that, just to avoid confusion.
Yeah, in that case, there are generally parts of a development that cost more to the town or would be more valuable in tax dollars, and we would want to make sure that the more expensive to the town parts are not built first, because like in Merrimack, they had a mixed-use development and they didn't end up building the commercial part because there was only demand for apartments, not commercial in that part of Merrimack. So basically, they would have to make sure that at least if the commercial part is the one that's more fiscally beneficial to the town, that would have to be built first or at the same time as the residential. And they could do it in phases, but they would have to have some commercial and some residential, and then some more commercial and then some more residential, or all the commercial then the residential, if that is deemed to be fiscally balanced.
Yes, Jay?
If I may, there are no guarantees, obviously.
Right.
But the mechanism is on page 2, subsection 8. So a fiscal impact study would be required as a part of the process. So that would be the mechanism for making the determination.
Right, and I understand that, but it just said is maintained, so it just and I get this, the timing and phasing plan, just bringing that to attention for further thought if the board thinks that it's necessary to just give that a little bit more thought, just with the wording. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Jay, do you have anything that you'd like to add regarding the?
Not really. I think we've talked about this several times. We just did get some input this evening. One on subsection 5, changing it from 200 to 100 square feet. And obviously some concern related to using the word maintaining. Maybe it could be providing. So I think otherwise it'd be up to the will of the board. I do think that even changing the 200 to 100 is a substantive change. Mm-hmm. So if it's the will of the board to make that change, it would need to go to a second public hearing. Mm-hmm. Which timing-wise?
Just the front. Was not less than 100.
I realized there was an error last time in keeping the language 100 and changing the 200, but the intent was 200. Yes. That's why I think it's a substantive change and not a grammatical error. I mean, granted, it's not a huge change, but sufficiently substantive that I think we should plan to hold a second public hearing, which I believe we still have the time to do in time for the next meeting.
Does the board have any question?
So I was looking through this, I was wondering why we don't allow any hotels or bed and breakfasts in the Northern Commercial District.
I don't have an answer for that.
Because I did some very quick research, and it is one method of economic development, because of course it attracts people to come to us, and they would likely use the neighboring businesses. Like obviously they're a higher density option, but we can probably have regulations that fit the feel of the neighborhood. Obviously they would not be able to build the same size hotel or bed and breakfast as you can in Manchester, but we're close to our regional airport, so I'm curious what other people would think about some permit, having some level of it allowed.
Any thoughts? Charbonneau, I know you had your hand up.
Just a question to that. You're limited to a 6-unit building, right?
I think that
So
was,
how would that fall in, how would a hotel fall into that?
I think that was removed.
I believe that was just residential. But I
Yeah.
do think we removed that limit.
But if, well, what would you,
Yeah, we removed that limit.
okay, so they wouldn't matter, okay.
What do you think the town would think of it? Because that's what matters.
I believe an Airbnb would fit easily. A hotel, I don't know if you would have a large enough hotel to even bring in value, because then you gotta rely on like a septic system. Where an Airbnb, you could rent out a room or two, that's not that much of a demand on the system, but
Yeah.
a hotel, I would think you'd need a fairly large hotel just to profit off it.
Potentially. Yeah, I read that hotels are not the most profitable business without like tax breaks and stuff. But I guess in this situation, the main value would be to the neighboring businesses, which may make the hotel itself not financially viable.
Yeah. And then with the, as you said, the airport very close by would be could add as a draw.
Because, yeah, probably the more fitting alternative to a hotel for Litchfield would be a bed and breakfast, which isn't an Airbnb, Airbnb has bed and breakfast in its name,
Yeah.
but I'd say that's different. Though a bed and breakfast can use a service like that for it.
I think a lot of the uses are gonna be dictated by the fact that you don't have septic and you don't have, well, you've got water, but
Yeah.
you don't have septic there, and that's gonna dictate the size of the building. I mean, if I'm a developer, I'm going out of my way to put in all that if it's not gonna.
Right, and if it's a resident, if you're dealing with residential, I mean, I would think, the businesses would have to cater to that the community itself. No, just don't see how a hotel fits into that
I would
character.
think the hotel would also fall under the 10,000 square feet or less. Just to align with, what we have here, convenience stores, health and beauty.
Yeah. Like, obviously, I don't know what size would be commercially viable.
Right.
And the question is, should we allow it and then the developers choose if it's commercially viable or not, or just not permit it at all?
Well, you could sort of split the difference in the sense that you could say bed and breakfast, but not,
Yeah.
not implying hotels or motels,
Yeah. Yeah, a motel would not fit
But
the.
a bed and breakfast, you could put that in as a conditional use. I think that would probably be acceptable in this town.
Yes, and that would be, how would we categorize that in terms of the village? Because I think it would make more sense in the village, because a bed and breakfast would have visitors who would want to use the nearby businesses potentially.
I think you gotta be realistic too. I mean, this is the town of Litchfield. It's not like, we're not like North Conway or, up in the North Country where, people get tourists and people are coming in to, visit and, having a bed and breakfast is a nice thing and all that stuff. I mean, the town of Litchfield I'm not saying it's not touristy, but it's a little different, vibe, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to be,
Not a destination.
well, I wouldn't say necessarily a destination, but I mean, it's a nice
Yeah.
place to visit, but I don't think it's something, I can't picture a bed and breakfast. I mean, I can picture it in North Conway or somewhere where, people go who are tourists and visit and, do all that stuff, but I don't know.
You can come here to golf, stay the night.
Honestly speaking, the only thing that would make a hotel or bed and breakfast viable there is probably during the Halloween season with the spooky world. That's probably the only thing that would make that viable.
But even still, I mean, I think you have to be realistic. I mean, in terms of our town, I mean, I think it's, it's a nice idea, but I think I would rather have that, in a place where, if you're gonna have a tourist destination, that's more practicable.
But Jay, there's a list of uses that this points to anyway, right?
Well,
instead of pointing to that list, we just repeated the things in that list that we wanted here. So if we wanted to add something different, we could, because we're not pointing back.
So,
Step on up, state your name.
Yes.
George Lavash, 13 Pearson Street, Litchfield. I'm just looking at some of the numbers here. You have a minimum density of 2.5 units per acre. Let's say we had a 20-acre development, all right? So you would have to have 40, 50 units on that 20-acre parcel. 20% of the area, site area has to be dedicated to internal space, so that's 4 acres of your 20 acres have to be open to green space. If you have 50 apartments, you now have to have 100 square feet, so that's, well, it's only 5,000 square feet of, I was thinking it was gonna be 50,000 square feet, so it's 5,000 square feet of commercial space. For a second there, I thought it was gonna be 50,000. So I guess that will work out. So I was just wondering, out of your 20 acres, your 2 have to be open space, you need parking areas, and then you're gonna require them to have at least 50 apartments or housing units on there. So when I first read this, I thought it was weird that you had a minimum density for apartments. Was that did you do that on purpose?
yeah, the minimum was added, last
At the
meeting.
last meeting, yeah.
Yeah, because the higher, like, part of the purpose of this village is to have the residential theoretically support the commercial. And if you have more people living right next to the commercial, the businesses would be more likely to have users from the adjacent property, or same property if it's on one lot. And if the density is too low, there would not be a lot of people to come over and use the commercial properties.
Okay, so that was just I just looking at the numbers, was it going to work? And, you are forcing the 50.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, come on up.
Yes.
Laura Gandia, 3 Chamberlain Drive, and I was just looking at this from a zoning lens. So number 9, because any of these conditions, I believe, and I haven't looked at it, could be, somebody could come to the planning board for a variance. Is that correct, Jay?
To the zoning
Right,
board,
to the
yes.
zoning board for a variance.
Yes.
So if you look at number 9, it says the planning board shall determine whether the proposed use is so on and so forth. So I'm thinking the wording of that, number 9, should be changed, and I don't know why the planning board shall determine anything about the proposed uses if they're already an allowed use. So I'm thinking that number 9 should be rewritten to be something like this. The building design and landscaping shall be compatible with the character of the area. So I think what we had there is a little bit hard to really get a good handle on. And I think if somebody wanted to waive the planning board shall determine, I don't think that's a provision that we would want to have somebody come to us to say that the planning board can or cannot do something. So that's why, again, the proposed uses are allowed, so I don't think the planning board should have the ability to determine the compatibility of a proposed use if it's an allowed use. We're already saying that it's an allowed use in the zoning. So again, the building design and landscaping shall be compatible with the character of the area, would be my suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. So I think if there's nobody else that's going to comment tonight on public input for this, I'm going to close public input on this subject. And I'm going to bring it back to the board And what does the board want to see happen next?
So yeah, we should probably revise some of the wording. As discussed, do you have comments on that?
Yeah, so if I think we just heard the comments on 9. I know, I think you probably struck more words than I might, but the planning board shall determine whether the building design and landscaping is compatible. You said with the character of the area, I think you're dropping mixed commercial, residential, and historic character.
Do you want me to respond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, but I also took out the planning board shall determine.
You just put,
I put the building design and landscaping shall be compatible.
okay.
So I think just from a zoning point of view, having the planning board shall determine, if somebody wants to come for a waiver for that, that's problematic.
All right, so that was one suggested change. We also, though, had the comment on 10, the concern, I think in particular, it's that the positive fiscal balance is maintained. Some concern that might be interpreted, that down the road, somebody could say, gee, it's no longer positive. So perhaps that could be worded to, in the middle of the section, submitted for approval by the planning board. Perhaps it could simply strike the rest of that and say instead to encourage harmonious fiscally balanced development.
Maybe for
Encourage
all.
harmonious so we're just encouraging it, we're saying that that's the goal, but we're striking a positive fiscal balance is maintained. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's possible, unless, like, if we wanted to clarify what the fiscal balance is maintained during, we could say during all phases of the project, building phases of the project.
Yeah, I think the concern though is that down the road, it could become a zoning issue. So 10 years from now, could somebody come and say, gee, you're now in violation because we run a new fiscal analysis and that commercial building is vacant,
Yeah,
you're
that's
no
why.
longer.
Yeah, that's why I said for all building phases. Or planned building phases. And like, I wonder if they could incorporate build phases if planned into the fiscal impact study. Because theoretically all the data in the fiscal impact study is there on this use, cost the town this, and brings this tax revenue to the town, and
Yeah,
this use does
your
that.
fiscal impact study would incorporate all phases, of course.
Yeah, so I think as long as that is provided and we don't see anything wrong with it, that I think would satisfy that, assuming they build according to their planned phase. And if they deviate from the phasing plan, it's actionable for the town, right?
Well, if they deviate from the plan, they have to go back and get another fiscal impact study, don't they?
Well, they have to come, I mean, if you deviate from the
Which will
plan, you have to come
include
back to the
the
board.
Yeah.
So the plan is, you've got a phasing plan that's approved, so any deviation from the plan has to come back to the board. Or it's in violation.
Yeah, I wonder if we could just clarify 8 to specify for all phases, proposed phases of the project, to basically ensure that the fiscal impact study includes the phases. And then for 10, we just require that the commercial and residential are built at the same time.
We certainly could.
Do you think that would solve the concerns?
I don't think so, because I think, say the project is all built and it was fully compliant when it was built. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, could someone say, gee, the store is vacant now? Or the residential units, the value has declined because now we're in a recession and condo values have declined 30%. And if I were to run a fiscal impact analysis now, maybe it's not positive. So would they be in violation of the zoning ordinance? Because I think that's the question. It's not the compliance at the time of development, it's,
That's why I'm saying for 8, the fiscal impact study, it just has to be provided to the satisfaction of the board, which is a one-time thing at the time of the application, and then we can revise 10 to remove the physical part from that and just require the residential commercial to be together.
So strike positive fiscal balance from 10, those,
But make up for it by clarifying in 8 that they have to include it for all proposed phases.
we could do that?
And where in 8 would we add the clause about all phases?
At the end of the
Where
sentence.
does it end?
I
And
think
then-
it's redundant though, because
you think?
effectively, the fiscal impact study is gonna include all phases.
Right.
I mean, it's implied, right? So, and if they change the
Theoretically-
phasing, they need to come back to us anyway.
But theoretically, they could, as worded, if we ignore 10 and just look at 8, if we want to just move all of the burden for the fiscal thing to 8, then they could just have it so that the last phase of the project is the one that helps the town and say when it's built.
But it doesn't work that way, because when they produce the fiscal impact study at the onset, right? It's going to have all of those components
It'll have them
that
all,
have been
but
approved.
our goal is to make it so that they don't build certain phases and then stop before a phase that is the one that is profitable to the town. We don't want the burdensome ones to be built first and then the valuable ones to the town built later. Like we don't want the if residential is deemed more burdensome, we don't want that built, all of it, and then the developer to go bankrupt and then no commercial is built, or they just determine that, oh, that's not viable anymore, we're just not gonna build it. So
So are you relying on us to make that decision of what's financially viable at which point in time?
we would want that to all be in the fiscal impact study if possible. So I think the goal would be to have the fiscal impact study demonstrate, they would have to specify the phases and then demonstrate that each phase is fiscally beneficial to the town.
Right, I get what you're saying.
So I think we need to make that explicit so that they don't phase it in a way that in the end it's good for the town if everything works, but if they stop halfway, it's bad for the town.
So it would be a net positive fiscal impact to the town for each phase of the development.
Exactly.
And then you could strike it from 10.
Yeah, I think that addresses the concern.
Makes sense? Could do that.
And then 10, we can strike it all, or we can still require commercial and residential portions.
Yeah, you could still keep all of that sentence, just strike the positive impact, because you're still asking that they
Yeah.
put in a timing and phasing plan.
Exactly. So I think that
So you're incorporating all of 10.
minus the end.
Okay.
And all of the intent of that part of 10 is now in 8.
Right, and you're just striking those 3 words, positive fiscal balance from 10.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, do we want to permit, not that it will happen, but do we want to permit bed and breakfasts in the village?
I mean, I don't see a reason why not, considering that they're allowed in the northern commercial zone. I think the only reason that perhaps they weren't like included on this list as something that was like encouraged is because I guess I could see like a realm where it's not exactly harmonious with like residential, but I don't know if that's a decision we want to make. I don't know if that was why it was excluded, but I don't see a reason why not.
You can interpret it in different ways, but like I think the way to think of it is it'll probably be a small one, realistically speaking. It will be probably utilized most in the Halloween season, and most likely they would, if there's a nice restaurant there, they'd probably go to it. So, like, it'd be interesting to hear more from residents on that, but I think
So then you should probably label it bed and breakfast or inn.
so. How would inn.
Because an inn has a full-service restaurant that doesn't just cater to its patrons, it
Open to the public.
opens to the public.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I think so. Add that as M in the
Yep.
commercial uses. And of course, they would have to go to the state for the permit to make sure that the septic works, but that will be the responsibility of the applicant and the state. Anyone? Is everyone okay with adding that?
I'm not opposed to it.
Again,
I'm not opposed to
I mean, I guess I'm not opposed to it. I would just say, thinking realistically, I mean,
We're allowing it. We're
I
not
understand, I
requiring it.
understand what you're saying, but I'm just, again, be realistic. That's all
You
I'm saying.
never know.
You never know. You're right. I mean, it's, yeah, that's true.
And now we got the Holly Jolly Journey during Christmas.
That's
So
true. Maybe maybe that'll,
you
yeah.
can't just
maybe
say it's
that'll-
Halloween anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fly into Manchester, stay at
I
Litchfield,
know,
yeah.
right?
I think that would
I
be.
didn't know if you were gonna bring up the 200 square feet, but that was a very detailed discussion last time, and it was in the minutes, and
Yes, it was.
we gave a lot of thought around that. And
We could-
why we didn't want it 100, why we did want it 200.
We could do 125.
Why
I-
not splitting the difference to 150? Just
We want it to be viable, I guess.
But what does that mean, right? So 200 versus 100. Our discussion, as I recall last time, was wanting to make sure that we had a good balance, if I recall the conversation. Maybe a little fuzzy from before Christmas and everything, but the whole idea was a nice balance in the neighborhood.
So yeah, if we have 35 acres, let's say, and we have 4 units per acre, and we require 200 square feet per unit, that would be 28,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Whereas if we require 100, it's half that, so 100, so 14,000 square feet. So if we picture the size of 14,000 square feet.
15,000 square feet is like the size of a CVS. I mean, just for perspective.
Yeah, a bigger town CVS, because
Yeah, I'm just-
we'll
I'm
allow
not
a
saying it's
CVS.
allowed there.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll
just
allow a
trying to give you
CVS here,
perspective.
but it will have to be no more than 10,000 square
Yeah.
feet.
I guess the question comes down to, as a minimum,
Yeah.
what's really viable?
Is-
Is two viable?
Yeah.
Is one more viable?
Yeah, the goal is to promote the commercial development that the town appears to want. So, well, I am not an expert in this, so.
So it was originally one, and then we changed it to two last time. So
And
it's just a question.
what did you use to determine the initial 100?
I think the 100 was a kind of looking at a couple of things. So looking at the types and sizes of uses that back when this was originally put together, we thought were viable for Litchfield. And also looking at that 10,000 square foot max that we had put on, multiple uses, individual buildings. So it was just kind of one of those, looking at the parcels that we have, thinking about the size of the kinds of things that seem to make sense for Litchfield, which do tend to be smaller scale. Of course, you can have a little, strip mall type thing, multiple tenant space. So, but I guess that's really what it comes down to. I wouldn't say that an economic analysis went into it. It was more thinking about what's realistic.
Yeah, so looking at the square footage, if we require 200, it would most likely be like 2 small pharmacies and 1 small thing versus 1 pharmacy and 1 small thing for scale. Doesn't have to be that.
Or you could think Corning Farm, is it a 5,000 square foot commercial building added to Corning Farm, or is it a 10? Roughly. And again, kind of what does that look like if you kind of visualize those
Like-
little groups of townhouses? Picture one of those becomes a commercial building in terms of scale.
Yeah. And that would be for
The 100.
What? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm slightly conflicted.
I think, you know,
We could definitely. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be somewhere in between, also.
That's true. We can make substantive changes tonight, but not after tonight, so kind of want to make a decision that we think works.
Yeah.
Or if you left it more conservative, and then if they came to you, would you be able to issue a variance for something more, or no?
Planning board couldn't.
we can't.
Well, this is a minimum, so you can go higher. It's
Yeah.
what you can't go below, but the planning board could not.
Yeah.
no.
So, if we set it to 200 and the developers don't think it's viable, they would have to go to the zoning board for
Yeah.
that.
And then a precedent would be set, and
Well, that's if they grant it. They may or
If
may
they
not.
grant it.
Right.
Realistically speaking, like one of those townhouses as commercial would probably be what you can expect to be viable in Litchfield.
on that plot of land, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in that proportion.
That's overly commercial, do you?
Yeah, it's not going to change the character too much.
Yeah.
That's at the 100.
Yeah.
200, you double that, so. I guess end of the day, you want to make sure that we don't create something that isn't going to have any takers.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it'd be interesting to break down the percentage of Litchfield residents that want commercial because it helps their taxes, and the percent of people who want commercial because they can shop there. Because I'm sure those that just want it to help their taxes don't want it to grow too much, but those that want it for their taxes probably want as much as you can get there.
And in that, I can answer. I can say with the survey that was done by the Economic Development Committee, at least to me, my takeaway was when people were asked the kinds of things that they wanted to see in town, most of those tended to be things that were places to gather, or that, places that people thought were attractive. They wanted to go to coffee shops and bakeries, and that was the kind of response we got.
And those are not
That's
big. They don't have to be big.
Right.
So we can go on the small end of this and still meet that goal. Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we just leave it at 100, but that's just my opinion.
No, that would be changing it back to 100.
We're changing it back to 100, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, technically, it says 1 and then in
I
parentheses
know.
2,
I
so.
know.
The intention was to.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna do gross harm by putting it to 100, is my opinion.
It's still the developer's responsibility to
Yeah.
prove that's fiscally
Yeah,
beneficial.
viable, yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to move a business in there that's gonna fail, so,
Yeah, so since we have the fiscal impact study, I don't think we have to be too strict. As long as it appears to be, according to the math, fiscally viable or beneficial to the town, then I'd say let's not be overly restrictive. So is anyone opposed to reverting back to 100?
versus the alternative of what they can do with it now. No.
Okay, so.
Anything else?
And just one comment, the internal green space, like there's a good chance that's probably just gonna be septic fields. So I doubt it will be burdensome at all.
I'd hope it'd be a little more than that,
Hopefully. Yeah, like if it was a village, really dense village, then it would. If they put them in the front, then it would be. If it's in the back, then it wouldn't be. But yeah.
Feels like candy canes coming up.
Mushrooms.
Yeah. Very green.
Okay. So the changes that we are going to make are revising bullets 8 and 10, clarifying the 100, or going back to 100. The potential inn and bed and breakfast use, which most likely won't happen, but will be permitted. Is that all the changes?
Yes.
Okay. So we probably have to have another have a motion for a public hearing at the
Next
next.
would be a motion to send it to second public hearing on January 21st as amended.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to send the proposed zoning amendments for the second public hearing on January 21st, 2025.
All right, I have a motion by Jared. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Leah. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 0, 0. Okay. Very good. We will have another public hearing. Okay. All right. Moving on. Next item on the agenda this evening is a subdivision application for one lot into two at 288 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 12, lot 29, creating two residential lots with one access from Route 3A. The applicant is David Hilywell, is that how you spell it? Owners Winford Van Murek and Kimberly Queen, and are the applicants here this evening? Anybody representing the applicant? Yeah, so if you guys want to come to the table, introduce yourselves to the board.
How you guys doing? Dave Elwell. My name's Joel Conley. I'm with the DeBay Group. I'm the surveyor of record on this.
So this is a, I believe is a subdivision application, and the board should have received copies of that. So this is the other one. So typically what we do when we do a site plan application, so you submitted your plan review and certain documents required. So Joan, I'm going to ask, have all fees been paid and all abutters notified for this application for
Yes, fees
subdivision?
were paid and the butters were notified December 26th.
Okay. Jay, have you had an opportunity to take a look at this plan?
Yes.
And it looks good to your satisfaction? Everything is complete and required? Okay. So first we have to accept the application for its completeness. And seeing that all fees have been paid, all the butters have been notified, and that we have all of the paperwork necessary to complete for the application, I'll entertain a motion to accept the application for completeness for this project.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All right, this is for voting on the acceptance of the application for its completeness. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained. All right, motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, so now that we've accepted the application for its completeness, I'll allow the applicant to explain what it is that they are proposing for this subdivision.
Well, I'll let Joel go with that. All right, so this is parcel of land that was somewhat recently approved to have a winery and a vineyard on it. So they've halfway constructed that. The building's shells there and everything else, but they have stopped construction on that, and my client's purchasing the land, and his intent is to convert the building into a residential dwelling. that was gonna be a winery. And so, to do so, we need to subdivide the lot into two, to separate that from the existing house, so we don't have two residences on one lot. So it's, and we're gonna, basically, the water service is already, across the street and everything's, so we still need to do the, septic and all that other stuff associated with the house, but that's, separate. We've done all our test bits and everything. It currently has a driveway permit, for a residence and a winery, so we'll have to update that when it gets converted to a residence, to have two residences. They're gonna share the existing same driveway, so we're not changing anything, so we don't see any issue with that. It's actually, a lesser impact on the, as far as the driveway, a single residence versus a winery. The existing houses and barns are kind of in, the buffers to that wetland over there, but there's no other new construction that's gonna be impacting any of those type of areas. The, lots both meet all the minimum requirements, frontage, area, all the different variations of areas, shape factor, were all met, so. It's pretty straightforward. There's nothing, too crazy that we're doing here. It's, so there's no necessarily new construction that, just gonna finish off the construction of that house and converting it to a, residential dwelling. So,
And I'll ask you, is there any regional impact to this project? Probably not, right?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
The
So-
application says there is none.
No, that's okay. So, but for the record, I'll just say there's no regional impact, so. Anything else?
No, I think, is there anything else you wanna add to that?
No, just looking to live here and not change anything. Just it's my understanding, and I'm naive to this, but you can't have two dwellings on one piece of property, so thus the subdivision. But that stretch of road seems like it's sacred land. I'd like to keep it that way, just occupy it by living in there, and not make any impacts or changes other than converting it to a living space. That's it.
Okay. Very good. Jay, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Just a couple things, of course, as they noted, update the driveway permit. Just two other things for the plan. Well, one for the plan, you should just add the impact fee calculations.
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
plan.
Joan sent them those over, so I've added those to the plan.
And then, other than that, there is a joint access agreement, a utility easement, so we should just have those approved by town council.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Actually, all of you. Is there precedent in town for shared driveways?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are subdivisions that have shared driveways.
So I wanted to know.
It's never been a good idea, but it does exist.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, I know, you originally went to the zoning board to try to get reduced frontage to have 3 lots, right?
Correct.
And did you determine that it would not be viable to put in a little tiny road to increase your frontage and have 3 lots?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of looked at it. You still get 3 lots, you put a road in, it's gonna be kind of a big expense to put a road in. When you're basically just adding 1 lot, you already have the 2 there. So basically, you're just getting one additional lot for an expense of a road. And just the way the shape of it, you kind of have to come back pretty far to get a road and get all your shape factors, get your building envelope was kind of really one of the challenging ones that I kept looking at different shapes in here, mostly because of that wetland in the front corner. You kind of really just messed with the whole thing as far as shape factors, all the setbacks. Plus you get the front 50-foot setback, so then you really start getting into a lot of challenges. You'd have to pretty much take out that house that's there on the front to do it.
Okay, great.
Anything else from the board? All right, at this time, I will open it up to public input. Is there any members of the public that would wish to comment on this site plan application this evening? Okay. All right, seeing none, I will close public input and come back to the board. What would the board like to do? It's pretty straightforward subdivision application. So we can certainly conditionally approve it with those provisos that the easements and documents will be reviewed by town council, and that the impact fee calculations be added to the plan as proposed.
So it's, so the conditions would be the impact fees shown on the plan, approval of the access and utilities easement by town council, and the town's standard conditions of approval. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay, any more discussion before I make a motion?
Anybody? No? Go ahead.
So I'll make a motion to approve the proposed subdivision for existing lot 12, map 12, lot 29, into 2 residential lots, with the conditions being impact fees shown, approval of accessing utilities easement by town council, and the town's standard conditions of approval.
Okay, I have a motion by Jared. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the application for the 288 Charles Bancroft Highway subdivision, please signify, for the conditional approval, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Anybody abstained? All right, motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And Joe, you got the street number for the other?
Yes, yeah, the street number, I did that. Yeah, it's already on the plan too.
And the tax map number will carry over to the other lot, so it'll be a 3-digit.
Yep, so, yeah, -1. Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Yeah, you can grab it. Oh, you mean the cord too?
All right, the next item on the agenda this evening, subdivision application, 3 lots
Yeah, we'll just,
into,
yeah, we'll just.
I'm sorry, application of 3 lots into 3 lots at 157, 158, and 164 Charles Bancroft Highway. Map 6, lots 32, 35, 36. Ownership applicants, DeRocher Family Trust and Cecile and Claudette DeRocher. Applicant, Litchfield Conservation Commission. The intent of the application is to subdivide map 6, lot 32, and adjust the lot line between map 6, lots 35 and 36, resulting in 2 building lots, one on the east side and one on the west side of Route 3A, and the 2 conservation lots. If the aforementioned subdivision applications are accepted, notice is hereby extended application approval, consideration, and/or continuation to a date certain as required. And I assume the applicant is here this evening. I see folks from the Conservation Commission and Dubé Group. Welcome. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves to the board and your address?
I'm Jason Brennan, Conservation Commission Vice Chair.
George Lavash, Conservation Commission alternate member.
Welcome.
Joel Conley, debate group, surveyor.
Welcome, gentlemen. So the board does have an application before them this evening. We're going to do the same thing as we did with the previous application tonight. We're going to do see if we can accept the application for its completeness before we proceed. I will ask Joan, have all abutters been notified and all fees paid?
Yes, abutters were notified again December 26th, and fees have been waived as it is a town agency.
Okay. I see the application we have. Jay, have you had an opportunity to review this application this evening, for this evening? And do we have all of the required documents that we need? Okay. Thank you. All right. And seeing that we have all abutters been notified, all fees paid, and the required documents, I would entertain a motion to accept for completeness.
So moved.
I have a motion by Travis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Russ. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion for the application for acceptance for completeness, please signify, or I should say, the motion to accept the application for completeness, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Anybody abstained? Motion passes 7-0-0. And I am also going to ask, I assume there is no regional impact regarding this project, so I'm just going to put that on for the record, so. All right, gentlemen, I'll let you guys make the presentation, so.
All right, that'll be me. Hold on, I might need my mouse.
Okay.
You never know. All right, thank you very much for having us. We're here tonight to present subdivision at the DeRocher property, and this is a project that the Conservation Commission has been working on for 2+ years. I put a quick presentation together, just that might answer a lot of your questions. For the folks on the planning board, I actually just emailed it out like a couple of minutes ago. You guys can't.
I got it, thank you.
Quite see it, so I kind of sent it out for you. Little bit of background about the DeRocher property. It is beautiful historic farmland. We are looking to acquire 60 of the 65 acres at the DeRocher property. About 2-3 years ago, the DeRocher family approached the Conservation Commission about potentially selling the property to us because they want to keep it as open space in perpetuity. You know, the big thing with these folks, the DeRochers, that I've learned over the past couple of years in talking with them is they have extreme pride in their property. It almost kind of makes me like a little bit emotional. When you talk to these folks, the history of the property, their father purchased it in the 40s. It was primarily farmland for, 100, 200 years prior to that. All of the stories that they have all revolve around the farmland. And they really want to keep it as farmland moving forward. So it's pretty kind of cool. When they came to us, we have like a little bit of a checklist at the Conservation Commission to see if the property actually meets our requirements. And there's key things like, is it on 3A? Is it on the river? Is it next to other conservation land? Those are the kind of boxes that we like to check. And it pretty much checks all of those boxes. Regarding the specifics related to the property, it is located in kind of that historic farming corridor in town. It's zoned residential. There's 600 feet of Merrimack River frontage there. It connects to existing conservation property, and it's currently farmed by a combination of McQuestion Farm and Alvern Farm as well. As you can imagine, in Litchfield, property is expensive. And so the Conservation Commission could not afford this property. So once we learned that the DeRochers wanted to sell the property to us, we went out and we researched grants. We researched and put in for 2 grants, what they call the New Hampshire LCHIP grant, and actually the Source Water Protection Grant from New Hampshire DEP. That property is within a window, within a radius of Pennachuck water intake, so it kind of put us into that pile of money. These grants were very highly competitive, and we secured both of them to the tune of $585,000. And you can see the picture up there. We went and met with the governor, this Diane, Joan, and myself last year. And then we actually had the New Hampshire Director of Agriculture heavily involved with this as well, to the point where he actually went to the DeRocher's house and sat at the kitchen table and kind of talked them through the process, which was kind of neat. Okay, a little bit about the timeline of events here. 2022, they contacted us and had interest in selling the property. In early 2023, we got an appraisal on the property. We also, in early 2023, identified the grants that were available. And then in mid-2023, we met with the Board of Selectmen, and we received approval to go after this project and to apply for the grants. The Board of Selectmen supported it 5-0-0. The Conservation Commission supported it 7-0-0, and the DeRochers were in support of it as well. And Steve Gannon was actually part of that process. He was there at the time. In late 2023, we received both grants to the tune of the $585,000. And then 2024, last year, we got the purchase and sales agreement nailed down. We had 2 public hearings on this process as well. The Board of Selectmen voted 5-0-0 to accept the grants. We signed the purchase and sales agreement. The grants were signed. All that paperwork stuff was signed as well. And now we're at the process where we're doing the subdivision and then moving forward, trying to get to closing. All right, so now to the kind of the fun stuff, where it is, what it looks like, and so on. If you take a look at the map up there, it's in the kind of the center part of town, a little bit about a mile south of the center of town, and it skirts both sides of Route 3A. Diving a little bit deeper into the property, it consists of 3 individual lots, tax lots, Lot 1, Lot 2, Lot 3. On the west side of 3A, it's to the tune of about 26 acres. On the east side of 3A, it's a little bit over 40 acres. If you kind of look over to the right side of the map there, it backs up the Conservation Commission to the east, and it backs up to the Merrimack River to the west. Giving you a little bit of photo montage here. As you can see in the photos, a little quick Google Street View. As you're going down 3A, the property is on both sides of the road. On the right side of the road is the house, the east side, on the west side, the west side. On the east side of the road, left side, is a storage building that they have. We would be looking to acquire where you see on the A, on the right side of the map, and then B, which is the 40 acres way off on the side. So that's what it looks like. I'm now going to take you through like a little picture tour of me kind of walking down the river and coming back. So if you take a look, we're at the front of the house right now on 3A. If I pivot to the right and start walking down where that A was on the previous map, you can see that there's like a little road going down to the river. As you go down there, there's farm fields on each side. And then when you get down to the river, it opens up into this beautiful, I mean, look at the thing, opens up into a flat, beautiful farm field that's right on the edge of the river. And then if you go to the trees and look around, you get the river right there. Now, if I pivot and I turn around and I do a 180 and look back, that's me looking back toward the house. And you can see the smattering of farm fields back there, and that walks back up toward the house. And then the next slide is jumping across the road, and that's a drone shot of the farm field across the road, which was the blueberry patch that was there. And then the forest behind, and that's where the back 40 is. That's where the 40 acres is way back there. And in that 40 acres is a bunch of wetlands for the most part. It's pretty wet back there, a lot of growth, probably a lot of ticks and mosquitoes. All right, so kind of getting down toward the end here, some maps and highlights of the property. When you look at this, it's a little bit of an abstract view, but just to kind of get you positioned, there's the house on the left-hand side of the road. There's the storage barn on the right-hand side of the road. I'm focusing on the 26 acres on the left-hand side of the road. And what you notice here are the individual farm fields that are in there. Notice that there's a nice road that actually goes down, loops around the back of the farm field, actually comes back up in between these farm fields and loops back up around there. And that's the property in general, so it's got really, really good access. If I lay on top of that the existing property lines, that's what it looks like right now, up there in yellow. And then if I hit the button here and go down to where we would have the proposed property lines, that's what you see there in white. So what we would cut out on the west side of 3A is 2.6 acres for their property, and then we retain the rest of that acreage behind the scenes, and you can see the road going down there, looping, and coming back up. Quick look from the road. When you're at the road, we would end up owning this piece over here, and so that's that dirt road that I showed you. That's the dirt road going down, and that's how tractors would get down there and stuff like that. Okay, jumping across to the east side of the road, that's the 40 acres. That's the big piece of property. That's what it looks like right now. As I mentioned, a big chunk of this stuff is wet up there, and you can see the old blueberry patch field right here. If you look closely on the left-hand side of the screen, if I hit the button, you can see that white arrow. that is where the subdivision would end up being, and that would cut out 2 acres on that side. So 2.6 acres on one side of the road, 2 acres on the other side of the road. Zooming in a little bit closer, this is what the 2-acre parcel would look like. We're splitting the driveway essentially, or the entrance there essentially down the middle, so we've got enough space for us to have a road to get into the back part of the lot, and they have enough space there to be able to do multiple different things on that lot. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out the configuration of what it would look like. And then I think these are the last 2 slides here. This kind of boils down the actual subdivision itself. So going on the west side of 3A, it's 2.6 acres. Pretty straightforward. Everything, is inclusive here, and they retain the 2.6 acres, and then we obtain the farmland around that. Jumping over to the other side of the road, they have a pretty sizable storage building there. And we wanted to make sure that we kept in mind that that might be able to be used for something cool at some point in time. Honestly, I would love to put a brewery there or something and have a big deck overlooking the field and have a few beers and stuff like that. So we made sure that this we bumped it up to 2 acres because there's more flexibility in what you can do with that property in the future. So we made sure that they had ample land to work with in the future, and then we both have access to that property through 2 different driveway cuts. And then this last slide right here kind of gives the details on the subdivision and provides all of the measurements and so on. So that is a quick story of the Rocher Farm subdivision.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Do you 2 gentlemen want to add anything to that, or is that the?
No, that pretty much covers it.
That
Yeah,
covers
I mean,
it? Okay.
And both lots are, meeting all the requirements, once again, shape factors and setbacks and whatnot.
Okay. All right. Jay, any issues, any questions that you have, or?
I know, it's pretty straightforward, just pointing out that the conservation parcels are non-buildable parcels. The buildable parcels, the 2 that are proposed, do meet all of our requirements, so it's really pretty straightforward.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Anything anybody wants to ask?
On a question. Thank you for all the work the Conservation Commission has done. Thank you to the DeRocher family for this. This is a big positive for the town. Thank you, everyone.
If board doesn't have any questions at this time, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Does any members of the public wish to comment on the application? Subdivision. Have anything they want to say?
Jacob McQueston, 330 Charles Bancroft. I was not really part of this project in any way, so thank you to the Conservation Commission for doing that. This is some of the, I didn't see the slide in there, but this property is.
I know what you're talking about.
Some of the greatest farmland in the state, maybe even the country. We've been using it for as much of my life as I can remember, and the hope is to keep being able to do that. So the fact that the Rochers are able to come to the town, we were able to secure a grant that was pretty difficult to get, and it's going to have no impact to the town anyway. I'm excited for it to happen. I hope to keep being able to use that. My kids hopefully will be able to use that. And once you take, if we don't do something like that, the fear of taking it, not allowing it to go through conservation, which I don't know if that's actually a problem or not, but if you were to do anything other than this, once you put a house on a piece of property this beautiful, you're never going to be able to recover any kind of funds in a financial way through agriculture. It won't happen. So support it and I like it. Thanks to the Conservation Commission for doing it, and the DeRocher family for actually thinking to go to the town to do it in the first place. So I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they, yes, please come forward.
Greetings. Ray Peoples, 205 Charles Bancroft Highway. I'd just like to say that a very wise man at a meeting I was at one time or another said, everybody should live 10 minutes to 10 acres of open space so they can go there and decompress. This is a beautiful piece of property. I certainly applaud the DeRochers for giving us the opportunity first before they put this out to somebody that might develop it. As you guys probably all know, all the land use studies, the impact of not building on land is relatively inexpensive, right? The long-term cost of maintaining it, that is nothing in comparison to just throwing a couple of residential homes on it. The costs, spiral out of control with what town services and schools and need to be supported. So I would encourage you to approve this. It's a beautiful piece of land, some great farmland, and these guys worked very, very hard doing this. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset for the town going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
John McKibben, Conservation Commission. As Mr. McQuestion mentioned, it brought to my memory that when we did a study way back, some of this farmland, and specifically this, is 100% what they call soil potential index. So it's, like he says, probably the best land in Connecticut River Valley or the Merrimack River Valley.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment from the public? Okay, going once, going twice, 3 times. All right. Well, I will, before I close public input, I do have something that I do want to read into the record, and I did get a letter. So we received a letter, it's dated January 6, 2025. It's to the Litchfield Planning Board, and it's regarding the DeRocher land subdivision. Chair Croto and honorable planning board members, I am so excited for you to review the subdivision of the historic DeRocher farmland. This has been a project that has been years in the making. It was nearly 3 years ago that Joan McKibben and I were contacted by the DeRochers about the desire to preserve their land as agriculture in perpetuity. We first brought in the Piscataquag Land Conservancy to meet with them and to discuss the possibilities of putting the land into a land conservancy, only to hear that the DeRochers would like the land to be owned and managed by the Litchfield Conservation Commission. That rested the conversation, as the town could not afford the property without additional funding. Several months later, Mr. DeRocher contacted us again and said that he had spoken to Mr. Sean Jasper, the Commissioner of New Hampshire Agriculture, and that there were grants available to protect such an important piece of agricultural land. From there, we identified grant programs, applied, and were awarded $585,000 in grants. We worked closely with the Board of Selectmen along the way and received their full approval to proceed with the project. After a long process, we can finally see the finish line. This purchase means a tremendous amount to the DeRochers and the town. The DeRochers get to preserve their legacy and land that they are very proud of. The town obtains a stunning piece of property that helps retain the character of the town and keeps the DeRocher legacy of farming into the future. Thank you to the Planning Board for your assistance in reviewing this project. We are looking forward to bringing this project to fruition. Thank you, Diane Plansky, Litchfield Conservation Commission. Okay. And I guess if there's no other public input, at this time, I'm going to close public input on this, and I'm going to bring it back to the board, and if there's any further questions from the board, or what would you like to do? I think it's pretty straightforward. I think this is this has been a monumental project, and I think, Mr. Brennan deserves much of the credit. Diane, Ms. Plansky, and many other Conservation Commission members deserve much of the credit to putting this together. I think it's a great thing for the town of Litchfield, and that's just my personal opinion. And I think you guys did an outstanding job and putting it together, and the work that you had put into it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy process, I know, but it's achievable. If you believe in something, I guess it can happen. So it's very good.
I concur with your statement, knowing that this has been in the works for over 3 years, and the amount of work and effort that Jason has put into it, especially chasing the grants, is applaudable. Definitely thank you for Jason and the Conservation Commission.
So is there any other questions from the board before, do we want to vote on this? What do you want to do? Make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we approve the subdivision application of 3 lots into 3 lots at 157, 158, and 164 Charles Bancroft Highway, map 6, lots 32, 35, and 36.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Russ. Any further discussion?
Should we explicitly mention the standard conditions of approval in the motion?
Sure, we can do that. That's fine.
And what would those be?
We can just say Litchfield's standard.
They're
conditions.
pretty much, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, if you look,
they're listed.
If you look at the bottom of the plan review, it's plan copies with professional seals and signatures, original Mylar, all fees paid, if applicable.
Those are basically
Curb
standard.
cuts, subdivision.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to take a vote. All those in favor of approval of the DeRocher land subdivision, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda, we have a work session this evening. Couple of things in the work session. We have a building code warrant article.
That was good.
Proposal by the planning board, a butter notification definition to align with the state definition for a butter. I have a historic district ordinance, which was discussed on October 29, 2024 and December 17, 2024, and the stormwater management and erosion control, Appendix D. So I guess, Jay, if you want to...
Where do you want to begin?
We can begin at the beginning, I guess. Start with the
building code?
building code, and go from there.
Kim was going to be here for this, but I think she had to go to another meeting.
Okay.
You know about this?
I really have very little background on this.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, these are updates that do need to happen.
Yeah.
I can't speak to any of the specific requirements because building code is kind of not so much my world. But it would have to be, go on the warrant. And if we do want to move forward with it, we would have to send it to public hearing on the 21st. So I do apologize that I can't speak to the specifics of it, but I do recognize that these are amendments that do need to happen.
Okay.
So if the board wants to move forward with it with probably not that great comfort level, the action would be to send it to public hearing on the 21st.
Yeah, so this includes a building code board of appeals, which
Yes.
shall consist of 3 or 5 members who shall be appointed in a manner prescribed by the local legislative body, provided, however, that an electing zoning board of adjustment may act as the building code of appeals pursuant. So basically, in reality, this would probably mean that the ZBA can appeal building code problem.
Yes.
Like code
The
enforcement.
ZBA would be the Building Board of Appeals until such time as a Building Board of Appeals, a separate one was created.
Which, that's not gonna be anytime soon for Litchfield.
No, I don't think that's right.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is, it is a work session, so we're pretty
Yeah.
informal. If you want to come up, Scandia.
I think I can give a little bit of background to what may be happening. There was some concerns about when building permits were issued and people disagreed with the decision of the building inspector, where do they go for relief? Do they go to the Board of Selectmen or do they go to the zoning board? So that issue came in front of me in my capacity as chair of the zoning board, and I said, no, it does not come to me, because the only way it would come to me is by state statute. It says, if it's listed in the zoning code that the zoning board acts as the building code of appeals, then it can come to me. But it's not listed in our zoning, so it can't come to me, so it needs to go to the Board of Selectmen. And so I think that's kind of the background, as I understand it, of what's happening. So until such time the zoning ordinance is changed or amended to appoint the zoning board of adjustment as the building code of appeals, we have declined to act in that capacity. So I think this may be what is happening with this, to try to figure out if somebody wants to appeal the building inspector's decision, where do they go and how is that set up? So I think there's some options. You can create your building code of appeal, which I think is what may be trying to be happening here.
Yes.
Which is on 2. So she has, that, can be 3 or 5 members appointed, or as Jay was saying, the zoning board can act as the building code of appeals only if it's provided for in the town zoning ordinance, which it's not. So right now, I think it goes, my understanding is it goes to the Board of Selectmen until such time that the town either changes the town zoning to appoint the zoning board of adjustment, or they create their own building code of appeals.
Yeah, this document doesn't state that it is an ordinance. It's that it's
Correct, but
it's
it
a building
is,
code.
it would have to be adopted as an ordinance.
That's why we're workshopping it tonight.
Right.
And again, so it's 673:1, Roman numeral 5. It says, if no provision is made to establish a separate building code of appeals, the ordinance shall designate the zoning board of adjustment to act as the building code of appeals.
Okay.
So we don't have that designation in our town zoning to give the zoning board of adjustment jurisdiction to act in that capacity.
Yet.
Okay.
Right now, again, I think it should go to, my position is it should go to the Board of Selectmen.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to comment about this?
So this needs to go to a hearing 21st.
Yes, so I think we'd have to move it to public hearing. So does anyone want to entertain a motion to do the?
What we're looking at here, forgive me, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
but
go ahead.
What we're looking at here, though, is a conceptual. This isn't written up as if it were.
The problem is we don't
Draft.
have a building code right now, so we have to adopt this. They looked and searched, and we don't have one, so we need to adopt this. We need
So,
to get this to town.
just so for clarification, the public hearing is to adopt that code, is that?
No, public hearing, and then it has to go to a warrant.
Okay.
So would this be permission by the residents to create that, the ordinance
Create
for
the
this?
building code, basically.
And if I'll believe the state building code.
But don't we have a building code?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm looking at one.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Couldn't find where it was
you have to
adopted or
have one in every
adopted.
building inspector.
Like, is this the case of, are you saying Litchfield has one, or are you saying that
Well,
Litchfield?
I've got one in my book, that's all I know.
Is it, does it look like Litchfield's
They could never
materials?
find where it
Yeah.
was adopted.
It says the town of Litchfield Building Code, so if they, I guess Joan is saying there's no record of it being adopted, but it's definitely in this
There-
book.
Oh,
So the problem is it wasn't adopted.
What'd you say?
So
It wasn't
so it sounds
adopted.
like the problem was they were created but not adopted? Yeah, that's a recipe for confusion.
It says it was adopted September 29th, 1984.
Yeah, we have a date.
Then it says it was recodified in 86, and then it was amended March 1988, March 1990, and March 1996. Again, I'm just looking at what it says.
Okay, well, at least we have dates.
So we have a code.
So I think it would be beneficial to have some comments from those who were involved in
Well,
this
at least we
in
could
time.
set this to a hearing, and then
Yeah.
hopefully Kim will
Have a
be here
decision, maybe Ms. Kleiner can come in and,
And if she can't come in, at least some
Discuss
comments
what-
from her digitally would be helpful to clarify this confusion.
yeah. I think there's a lot, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of
I'm not sure
questions.
what we're supposed to do. So, what we're being asked to do, frankly. Because
Yeah, what
Well,
are
at
we
least
taking
take
to a
it,
public
put it
hearing?
to hearing, and then if there's, you can always hopefully should be.
Get more information.
clearer
Right.
up.
But we could, yeah, we could certainly put it to hearing.
Okay,
that'll be the first and only time
yeah,
that you as a board will have that.
right, because that's pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, this would have been helpful if we saw this before.
Yeah.
'Cause even still, I still don't know what's being asked of us to move forward to public hearing.
Yeah, this is not the usual
First sheet,
format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's lots of subtext in here that is talking to us as a board. For instance, in number one, in parentheses, this is automatically the case anyway, but you should include it just to be clear. So, I don't see any line crossouts, I don't see, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
not really sure what's intended for us as
Right.
the audience, or what's intended for the code as in the warrant article.
Yeah, this seems like a set of instructions for what needs to
Yeah.
happen.
Did legal take a look at this? Is legal?
I think legal did take a look at it, I believe. Mr. Charbonneau, I'm sorry.
We really have to rush into this? I mean,
No.
the system's been working,
Well-
I think.
Till
I
it-
haven't
We'll
had any
have one
problems,
date to go, one more hearing date to get it on the warrant.
but you're gonna have to make change. No one knows what's
Yes.
in this.
Is what we're going to put onto the warrant going to be the right thing to put on the warrant if we rush
Well,
through
we
the
wait till
process
next
now?
year.
She has on the.
If we can go to the selectmen for now.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, Ms. Kleiner is not here this evening. I think it might have been a little bit more informative if she was here.
But it sounds like we already have a building code that's been established.
Although Joan is saying it
Well,
wasn't
we're still-
adopted, but I
That's what they
don't know.
found, but I think we're going by the state building code, aren't we?
Oh, we aren't in trouble, I mean.
It's also pretty clarity.
The building-
I'm not sure.
It's just always been in my book here.
Jay has the proof.
See you, Jason.
Been building in town for 40 years and I haven't had trouble yet with anything like that, so.
Again, this
I
is
just hate to
totally-
rush into it
rush anything,
without
yeah.
review.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know, maybe someone else has reviewed it, but at least let us have some input.
Yeah.
And right now, we have none.
Yeah. According to this, it's already, the RSA length is already, sets the building code probably from the state.
Right.
So it would just explicitly mention that. But yeah, this is definitely not the format that we are used to presenting.
It does look like the thrust is to create the building board of appeals.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's the draft building code on the back pages.
So I guess, I mean, it says
wanna do?
required steps. Planning board must hold a public hearing, so I assume that's what they were looking for us to do.
So why don't we put this as an item to work on throughout the 2025 year?
Yeah,
put on the
I would
2026
agree. I think
warrant.
this was just presented to us at the stroke of midnight, sort of, so.
It's worth investigating further. Let's do our due
Oh, no, yeah,
diligence and
I
do a good
agree.
job with it.
I think
But to do
it's
it
something to.
in such
to
a
look at.
compact timeline as we have in front of us now,
Right,
I don't think we can do it justice.
Not responsible.
okay. All right. so that's that one. So I guess we'll put this one, we'll table it. Do we want to move on to something else?
Butter notification.
On stormwater?
Stormwater? Yep.
What about butter? Is it, should be
Oh,
an easy
okay.
one?
Well, we
Yeah,
can
we'll
do
do that
that.
one too.
That's gonna be.
Butter is next.
So I'm no longer on the big screen, but if folks have,
Would you need that back, Jay?
It's connected
Where
to
is
let me try again.
Yeah.
If that's what
Plug
worked
in-
last
plug
time,
in
I just
again.
tried it again. No. So I think I'll keep talking while we're looking, because this is a pretty straightforward one. I think as we've talked a couple of times before, state updated their definition of a butter. So we need to update our definitions to be consistent. We've gone through a couple of iterations. One was to just simply define a butter as defined under the RSA as amended. Initially we had all the language, then we went to that, and then we went back to all of the language because of the concern expressed that it's helpful for people to be able to see what's required in the ordinance. So basically, this is simply taking, I can read it, but it's really convoluted. It's changing the Litchfield's definition of a butter to parallel the state definition of the abutter, and then in addition, we simply add as amended afterwards, so it will encompass future amendments. And that's it.
Okay, I see Ms. Gandia has her hand up. Come.
Laura Gandia, 3 Chamberlain Drive. Thank you for the change to the abutter definition, but I also don't know if it's too late to request this, but section 1900 of the zoning code talks about any person aggrieved from the decision of a code enforcement officer may appeal to the zoning board of adjustment. State statute has changed that, and it now says that appeals to the Board of Adjustment may be taken by the applicant and abutter as defined by RSA 672:3, and so on and so forth. So our zoning code, section 1900, is not compliant with HB 1359 that went into effect in September.
It's not too late. We could send that to public hearing if.
This is our
there's
last
still a
chance tonight.
Yeah, this is it.
Not kidding.
Yo.
Could I get the reference again? Which
Yep, so for the Litchfield zoning, it's section 1900 appeals. And the bill that was passed last legislative session is HB 1359. And that limits who can make appeals to the zoning board. Before, you just had to be an aggrieved person.
That's right.
And they now narrowed that, so you can't be just the neighbor next door. You have to now be either the applicant and a butter, and then any officer, department, board, or bureau of the municipality.
That is correct. I forgot about that one.
Yep. So if we could have that updated, I think that would be helpful for folks.
So yeah, the board can vote to send that to public hearing on the 21st.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So I guess with that in mind, we can probably vote to move it to the 21st for public hearing.
Yeah, vote on both of them.
On both the, yeah.
Together or separate?
You could do it either way, but I'd say separate, yeah.
Okay.
So, for the abutter definition, we're not making any changes to it.
Right.
No,
So-
that's state statute.
Do we need to put that to a second hearing, or are we done with that?
Well, we didn't, you could vote to move it to the warrant. So, yeah, you could. Because you're right, we're not changing language, so you could vote to put that to the warrant if you wish.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think the only concern with this proposal was that it's gonna go out of date eventually, but it legally is gonna be okay because it has as amended. So, who will be crafting When do we determine the wording of the warrant article for this?
After the second public hearing, we'll know which items are going to go, and then we'll put it in warrant form.
Okay. So I guess I'll make a motion to put the proposed zoning amendment for the definition of the butter for warrant.
Okay. I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Second. Any further discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay. That's one.
So I'll make a motion to to hold a public hearing on the January 21st, 2025 meeting.
April 21st. Oh,
January.
you're right, January 21st. I don't know why I got April, sorry.
For the proposed changes to section 1900 appeals.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Travis. Any further discussion? All right. Take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Abstained. Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay. That's it.
And I think we have some people here probably interested in the historic district ordinance.
Okay. I believe I do see some people in the gallery. Did you folks want to come up to the table?
I sent a letter to Joan
Okay.
this week to withdraw our
Okay.
proposal for consideration for the election of 2025. So we were surprised to hear it as we were leaving, and that's why we stayed.
We could still work
It's
on
already on the
it.
agenda,
It's
that's
just,
We're gonna work on it individually, and we'll come back when we have it the way that the way that legal and you people want it to be.
Okay.
We're not gonna work on it tonight.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for coming. All right.
So I guess with that, I can go to stormwater.
I guess you can go to Stormwater.
All right, so if people have it in front of them, obviously, we spent a lot of time on this, and at our last meeting, we received several comments.
Good night.
And I think there was a general consensus that it made sense to address those comments. So, rather than go through everything, what I thought I would do is just go through the comments that we received and the changes that were made in response to those. Well, at least I'll go to the changes. So the first one was on page 6, and under design standards 3.41 subsection A, there was concern at the use of the term plan. All measures in the plan shall meet the best management practices. So it suggested that the word plan be changed to design. So that was done. Moving on further down that page, under section 3.5.1, kind of again a terminology concern for clarity. Here we use the term plan, and the suggestion was that should be changed to application. And so again, that was done, and that's because, for what it's worth, this is something that affects the application as a whole, not just the plan itself. Moving down to the section below that, 3.5.2, where we talked about construction drawings, a suggestion was that be changed to stormwater management plans rather than construction drawings. That's clearer, so that change was also suggested. Moving on to page 7, going down to close to the middle of the page, you see subsection B, where it starts with other previously planned requirements. Again, the word plan was changed to application, to be clearer. Moving right below that, section 3.5.3. And again, trying to make things clearer, reports section, what is that report? Report section accompanying the stormwater management permit application is inserted. And then the next change does not come in, I believe, until page 16, I think, if I'm correct. Yes, so that'll take you, the next change will take you all the way to page 16, where we have a few. So there were a couple of concerns that were raised related to section 3.13.2. So one was just, providing a little bit more flexibility, and also there was some concern for, well, C should be a requirement. And so kind of in looking at the way this was structured, I thought had to be, because if you see the intro, it says the applicant should consider. Well, if it says consider, you can't make it a requirement. So at any rate, I just changed the wording a little. So the first change you'll see is at the beginning of the paragraph is the applicant should, instead of consider, include, colon. And again, the use in A, I think that still works. B, sub B still works. So C is where we had some concern. So C will now say, instead of submittal of inspection and maintenance logs to the planning board on a yearly basis, it will say the application, again, has to include a schedule for submittal of inspection and maintenance logs to the planning board on a yearly basis or periodic basis as appropriate. So that gives us flexibility to say, based on this application, maybe it's every 2 years or whatever. Then moving on down that page, section 3.13.5, again, kind of which operation maintenance procedures. So a couple of changes to this one. So it would now read, a description of the operation and maintenance procedures approved by the planning board shall be recorded at the Register of Deeds. So that's the final plan that gets approved. Moving on down to the very bottom of the page under subsection B, just to clarify, the erosion and sediment control inspections that we're looking for in this section are during construction. So just the words inserted, during construction, the applicant shall conduct and document inspections, etc.
Jay, I'm looking at a different terminology. The one
Okay.
I see is says during development.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, during development is what I put.
Just wanna make
We could
sure.
put during construction.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're all.
You're right,
on
I
the same page.
misspoke, during development.
Okay.
Turning the page, same section, along similar lines, here we just added on a monthly or periodic basis as may be appropriate. So kind of, that's the theme we've been running kind of throughout, providing that additional flexibility. And I believe that's it, those are the changes. They weren't particularly extensive.
So the one, like, little thing that seems oddly worded to me is on page 16, section 3.13.2.
Yeah.
It was when developing these procedures, the applicant should. And now you cut out the first two words, but you still have these procedures, comma, the applicant.
I'm sorry,
should.
where are you?
The end of the first part of 3.13.2 on
Yep.
page 16. At the very end, you cut out when developing. And that doesn't seem to sound right. I think it should be when you just cut out,
Yeah.
or maybe within these procedures, not these procedures, the application should include.
Yeah, it should say, probably within these procedures.
Yeah. And I would say that that's a non-substantive
Yeah,
change.
no, you're right. You kind of lose track sometimes when you're making changes to changes.
Yeah.
You know what you wanted to say.
Right.
But other than that typo, is it ready for us to adopt?
We'd have to move it to public hearing. So
Okay.
last time, we just felt there were enough changes that we wanted to see them, so
Yeah.
it'd be a public hearing.
So I guess,
But you could do on the 21st. You don't have to do it on the 21st.
yeah. Is there any downside to doing it on the 21st?
No, this is just one where we don't have a schedule that we're looking at, but yeah, we can certainly do it on the 21st.
Yeah, Joan, are you aware of any additional applications that will make us
have,
want to defer this?
Only the gas station update and a minor subdivision on Rocky Hill Road. That's all I have for 21st.
Okay, so should anyone oppose to a public hearing on that date?
Let's do it.
No.
Yeah, we did a lot of work on this, we should.
Yeah, at that point, it should be a, does anyone have any problem with it? No, we adopt it. So I'll make a motion to put the proposed stormwater management regulations for public hearing on January 21st, 2025.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstain. Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, very good. All right. Okay,
And that's it.
and that's it. I think that's everything. Yep.
Good night,
See ya.
guys.
Good night.
Have a good night. Yep. All right, moving on to committee reports. Any reports from any committees? Jeremy's not here. Did you want to talk about economic development, Jay, or?
Yeah, we don't yet have one on the next meeting scheduled, although I think it's tentatively going to be the January meeting. And so I think the focus there is going to be a discussion on alternative zoning strategies. One of which is mixed use village developments. That was one of the things that's been discussed.
The Conservation Commission did meet last week, the 2nd of January. Obviously, tonight, we heard about the DeRocher property and the subdivision, so. I have not heard from the Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee. There hasn't been any meetings, so. Capital Improvement Committee did meet last night, set the schedule for 2025, which is good, so the next meeting will be in April. And that's everything I have for that. Approval of the December 17th, 2024 minutes. Anyone have an opportunity to take a look at those? Have any questions, concerns, amendments?
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 17th, 2024.
All right, I have a motion by Russ to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Jess. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion for approval of the December 17th, 2024 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. Okay. Let's see. Any other business this evening? Joan, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Jay?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have anything? Okay. All right, so, when is our next meeting?
21st.
21st of January, 2025, so,
Couple things on that agenda.
yes, yes, there is. So we will continue.
Several public hearings.
Several public hearings. All right, since there's nothing else, that concludes our business for this evening. Does anyone want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn, second. Any discussion? No. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstain, motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year, and we will see you on the 21st of January. Good night.